Case 01. The Deception of Amber Waterman, 2022. You're 31 weeks pregnant. You think you're going to a job interview. You have no idea the woman sitting across from you has already decided you won't be leaving alive. In 2022, a pregnant woman named Ashley Bush, just 8 weeks away from meeting her daughter, answered what she believed was a routine job listing. The person behind the post was 44-year-old Amber Waterman, and she had been planning this for a long time. Waterman had built a fake Facebook persona named Lucy Barrows to lure Ashley in. Under the pretense of employment, she drew Ashley to her property. What happened next was unspeakable. Ashley was killed. Her unborn daughter, who Ashley had already named Valkyrie Grace, died with her. Waterman then tried to claim the baby as her own, but investigators found what they needed in a fire pit on her property: the charred remains of both victims. At sentencing, the judge gave Waterman 2 consecutive life terms without any possibility of parole. Valkyrie Grace never took a single breath outside the womb. Ashley Bush never got to hold her. Waterman had researched this for weeks. She had a fake name, a fake profile, a fake job offer, and a very real plan. The question investigators kept asking: was Ashley the first she targeted, or just the first they found out about? Case 02. The Sacrifice of Ashley Parmeli, 2024. What do you do when a mother walks into a police station, not running from police, but to them, and says she just killed her children? In 2024, Ashley Parmeli did exactly that. She drove herself to a police station and confessed. Her 9-year-old daughter Scarlett was dead, her 2-year-old son Isaac was dead, and Ashley didn't seem like someone who was hiding anything. She told investigators it was a sacrifice, that she had done it to protect them from threats that existed only inside a mind completely severed from reality. Scarlett had been shot. Isaac had been drowned in a resort fountain. 2 children, 2 different methods. One mother in the grip of a psychotic episode so severe that 2 independent psychiatric evaluations concluded she genuinely could not understand that what she had done was wrong. The court found her not guilty by reason of insanity. For many people, that verdict was impossible to accept. For others, it was the only verdict the evidence could support. There are no winners in a case like this, only absence. The insanity defense is one of the most misunderstood in American law. It's not a loophole. It's not a technicality. It's a recognition that punishment requires understanding, and Ashley Parmeli, by every clinical measure, had none. That doesn't make it easier. It just makes it more tragic. Case 03. The Silent Neglect of Mariah Casten, 2022 to 2023. 2 newborns, no voice, no way to reach the refrigerator, call for help, or survive on their own. And the one person responsible for all of that wasn't there. The case of Mariah Casten doesn't involve a weapon or a plan. It involves something quieter and, in its own way, more devastating: the complete and total absence of care. Mariah's twin newborns died. Prosecutors didn't argue that she intended to hurt them. They argued something harder to defend against: that she simply stopped doing what a parent must do. Newborns are entirely dependent. They can't cry out in a way that calls for specific help. They can't move toward food. They can't survive a single day without someone choosing to show up for them. Mariah Casten was convicted of involuntary manslaughter. The case became a landmark of sorts in Missouri, a reminder that in law, inaction can be just as criminal as action when the stakes are this high and the victims this helpless. The defense argued that grief, overwhelm, and circumstance played a role. The prosecution said none of that matters when 2 lives depend entirely on you. The jury agreed with the prosecution. Case 04. The Tragic Fall of Grayson O'Connor, 2023. 7 times. 7 times someone called a hotline to say a little boy was in danger. 7 times nothing happened. And then, one day, Grayson fell 17 stories. Grayson O'Connor was 5 years old. He lived in a Kansas City high-rise apartment with his mother, Corinne. The building had safety stops on the windows, the kind specifically designed to prevent exactly what happened next. Corinne removed them. Grayson fell 17 stories to his death. But the most haunting part of this story isn't what happened on that day. It's everything that happened before it. 7 separate calls had been made to Missouri's Child Welfare Hotline about Grayson's safety. 7 chances to intervene. 7 times the system moved on without him. Corinne O'Connor pleaded guilty to involuntary manslaughter, She received a 10-year sentence. In the aftermath, advocates demanded answers from the Child Welfare Agency. Grayson's case became a symbol of what happens when warning signs are treated as paperwork instead of emergencies. Case 05. The Padlocked Home of Amberley Britton, 2025. Investigators said they'd seen a lot in their careers, but when they walked into this house, they said they weren't ready for what was inside. The children in Amberley Britton's home had access to almost nothing. Kitchen cabinets, padlocked. Bedroom doors, padlocked. The house had no heat, no bedding, and the food that was available they were barely allowed to touch. When the children ate what little they could find, some vomited from starvation. Their bodies had forgotten what a full meal felt like. Physical discipline with belts and paddles was routine, and when officers searched the property, they found something that explained a lot about the priorities in that household. A large quantity of methamphetamine. Britton and her partner were arrested. Prosecutors called it one of the most severe neglect cases they had ever seen, and these were prosecutors who had seen a great deal. 3 children survived this house, but surviving is not the same as being okay. Case 06. The Betrayal of Carter Bennett, 2025. He was 16 years old. He was asleep, and the person who came into his room in the middle of the night was his own mother, carrying a stolen gun. Carter Bennett never saw it coming. How could he? Krista Roy had planned this. She had stolen a handgun specifically for this purpose. She crept into her son's room while he slept and shot him multiple times. But Carter didn't die immediately. He woke up. He called for her, and Krista Roy, according to her own confession, picked up a kitchen knife and stabbed him, she said, to put him out of his pain. Then she lay down next to him in the bed and waited for him to die. Investigators and prosecutors have struggled to find the right words for what happened in that room. Carter's name deserves to be said clearly and remembered. He was a teenager who trusted his mother completely, as all children do. That trust was the last thing that killed him. Krista Roy told authorities she had also planned to kill herself. She did not follow through. She is now facing charges that could put her in prison for the rest of her life. Carter Bennett was 16 years old. Case 07. The Foster System Scandal of Brenda Deutsch, 2025. She had cared for more than 200 foster children over the years. She was 70 years old, and somewhere, hidden in that history, was a pattern of abuse that had been going on for decades. When a foster child went missing from Brenda Deutsch's care in Missouri, investigators found the child, alive, in Texas. And what they uncovered next unraveled years of hidden history. The allegation that made headlines first: Deutsch had exchanged the child for an exotic monkey. If that sounds almost too strange to be true, the investigation confirmed it happened. But the monkey was almost a footnote. What investigators found beneath the surface was a culture of abuse, stretching back across dozens of placements. Physical assault, financial forgery, and through it all, more than 200 calls to the state's child abuse hotline, with no sustained action. Deutsch had been approved, reapproved, and trusted with some of Missouri's most vulnerable children for years. The question being asked across the state: how does a system miss this for this long? More than 200 hotline calls, more than 200 children placed in her care. The system that was supposed to protect those children is now under investigation itself. Brenda Deutsch's case may end up changing foster care oversight in Missouri permanently. Case 08. The Fatal Choice of Bianca Wells, 2025. She knew. That's what prosecutors say. She knew exactly who she was leaving her 2-year-old with. She left him there anyway. Brian Wells was 2 years old when he died. He couldn't choose who cared for him. He couldn't leave. He couldn't call for help. His mother, Bianca Wells, left him in the care of a man named Nico Cotton for several days. Prosecutors allege she knew Cotton posed a substantial risk to the child. Evidence suggests warnings had been available to her. Brian died from a combination of strangulation and catastrophic physical and sexual assault. Nico Cotton faces the most serious charges. But Bianca Wells has also been charged with child endangerment because the prosecution's argument is straightforward. A parent who knowingly places their child with a dangerous person shares responsibility for what happens next. Brian Wells was 2 years old. He trusted the adults around him. Every child does. Missouri law on parental responsibility in cases like this has been tested before. But prosecutors say Bianca Wells's case is clear. She had information, she made a choice, and her son paid for it. The trial will determine what the law says about that choice. Case 09, the 33-hour timeline of Alyssa Wemire, 2025. 33 hours. That's how long investigators say a 1-year-old baby went without food or water while her mother was in the house. Alyssa Wemire was a former jailer. She understood systems, rules, responsibility, documentation, and yet investigators built a minute-by-minute timeline that showed her infant daughter went unfed for 33 consecutive hours. At one point during that window, the baby woke up crying. Wemire held her for 40 minutes. Then she put her back in the crib. Without food, without water, the baby died of dehydration. Wemire told investigators she had a migraine. The cause of death, dehydration in a 1-year-old, is something that takes time. It doesn't happen in an afternoon. It happens across a day, then another day, while a parent is present and choosing moment by moment not to intervene. Charges have been filed. The case has prompted deep public anger, particularly given Wemire's professional background in law enforcement. Her attorney has not yet entered a formal defense. But the timeline, built from home data, phone records, and physical evidence, is difficult to argue against. 33 hours is a very long time to explain away. Case 10. The oven claim of Mariah Thomas, 2024. She told police it was an accident. She said she meant to put her baby in the crib, but put her in the oven instead. When first responders arrived, 1-month-old Zariah had burns across her entire body. This case made international headlines, and not just because of the horror of what happened to Zariah Thomas, but because of the explanation her mother, Mariah Thomas, offered police. She said she was confused, that she had meant to put the infant down to sleep, that somehow she opened the oven instead of the crib and placed her 1-month-old daughter inside. Zariah survived, but with catastrophic injuries. Kansas City prosecutors filed charges carrying up to 30 years in prison. The court ordered a full mental health evaluation to determine Mariah Thomas's state of mind at the time of the incident. That evaluation is central to everything. Was this an act of deliberate cruelty, a psychotic break, something else entirely? The answer, whatever it turns out to be, will define not just Mariah Thomas's future, but also what justice looks like for a baby who can't speak for herself. Zariah Thomas is still alive. Her story isn't over. Mental health evaluations in criminal cases are not a get-out-of-jail-free card. They are a tool for the court to understand what actually happened inside someone's mind. In Zariah's case, that answer matters enormously, for the truth and for her.